Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, finds herself at the center of a political firestorm that has engulfed the small, once peaceful village. What was once a calm community has rapidly turned into a battleground as residents demand Henyard's resignation amidst a growing list of scandals and controversies. The tension in the town is thick, with many feeling deeply betrayed by her leadership, particularly after a county judge ruled that some of her recent appointments were illegal. This legal blow has intensified the already volatile situation as accusations of corruption continue to flood in and her management village board meetings grows increasingly chaotic despite the mounting discontent. Henyard has refused to step down, defiantly remaining in power and even mocking her critics in public appearances, including live TV broadcasts. Her refusal to resign has only fueled public outrage, with many residents questioning her ability to lead effectively. To make matters worse, an FBI investigation looms over her administration, compounding the turmoil that has engulfed Dalton. The political situation is spiraling, and it remains uncertain whether Henyard will continue her reckless pursuit of power, or if this marks the beginning of the end of her controversial reign in a dramatic show of defiance. Henyard made it clear that she intends to stay in power, further exacerbating the flames of discontent. During a particularly heated public meeting, which had to be moved to the Park District due to an overwhelming turnout of frustrated residents, Henyard took the stage to address the crowd. She boldly declared, "I am the mayor of this village. I see a real mayor, a real boss in the building." But rather than receiving applause, her declaration was met with loud boos and jeers, highlighting how far her support has dwindled amid the ongoing scandal. Once the heart of a quiet, tight-knit community, Dalton now finds itself at the center of a political storm, shaking the very foundation of its leadership with Henyard refusing to step down and the community's patience running thin. The future of her tenure remains uncertain. Will she continue to fuel the chaos and ride out the political firestorm, or will this be the moment her controversial reign begins to unravel? The stakes are higher than ever, and Dalton's political future is at a critical juncture. The drama is far from over, and the community watches anxiously to see what will happen next in the midst of this political chaos. Several new developments have further escalated the situation. The state controller has suspended certain payments to the village due to Henyard's failure to provide necessary financial reports. This financial setback has added yet another layer of anger and frustration among residents, many of whom have started attending board meetings in greater numbers to voice their displeasure. At these meetings, loud boos and public calls for Henyard's resignation are becoming more frequent, making it clear that the political climate in Dalton is rapidly growing more heated. The message from the community is crystal clear. They are fed up. Yet, instead of listening to their grievances and addressing the mounting issues, Henyard has opted for a defiant approach, mocking her critics publicly and continuing to push the limits of her power. This stance has only fueled the fire of frustration, as residents feel increasingly unheard and disrespected. Henyard's recent public appearances have done little to calm the situation. At one particularly contentious board meeting, she made a dramatic entrance, grabbing the microphone and attempting to assert her authority over the crowd. However, the crowd was unimpressed and turned their backs on her in protest, signaling a sharp divide between the mayor and the community. This moment was a clear illustration of the growing tension and lack of support for a mayor who now seems to be losing the trust of the very people she is supposed to serve. Meanwhile, Henyard's leadership is under intense scrutiny in the courts as legal challenges continue to mount against her actions. Allegations of misusing taxpayer money, appointing friends and allies to high-ranking positions without proper approval, and outright defying court orders have cast a dark shadow over her tenure. One particularly significant development came when a county judge ruled that some of Henyard's appointments were illegal. Instead of heeding the ruling, Henyard continued to push the boundaries of her authority, flaunting the law with apparent impunity. This refusal to comply with the court's ruling has only added fuel to the fire, and the situation has escalated into a full-blown legal and political battle. The mayor is now increasingly at odds with the village trustees, who have filed lawsuits challenging her actions. These lawsuits accuse Henyard of overstepping her bounds and abusing her power, further adding to the political chaos engulfing Dalton. The village has become a battleground, with trustees and the mayor locked in a fierce struggle for control. The ongoing legal proceedings only add to the sense of unrest, as residents watch the drama unfold with growing concern and frustration. It seems the situation is spiraling out of control, with no sign of resolution in sight despite the mounting pressure. Henyard continues to resist calls for her resignation, doubling down on her leadership style, which many see as increasingly erratic and out of touch with the needs of the people she serves. As the stakes grow higher and tensions continue to rise, it remains to be seen whether Henyard can survive this political storm, or if Dalton will be forced to move on without her. The drama in Dalton is far from over, and the coming days and weeks will likely determine the fate of Henyard's controversial reign as mayor. The village is now firmly entrenched in a political crisis, and with every new development, it's clear that the stakes have never been higher. Will Henyard continue to mock her critics and cling to power, or will the weight of public opinion, legal challenges, and political infighting finally bring an end to her tumultuous tenure? The outcome of the saga remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. Dalton is in the midst of a political earthquake, and the fallout from Henyard's actions will likely be felt for years to come. Despite court rulings, public outrage, and legal challenges, Henyard's resolve to stay in power remains unshaken. It is becoming increasingly unclear how much longer she can maintain her grip on Dalton's leadership. With the village divided, tensions rising, and the legal system closing in, the question on everyone's mind is whether Henyard will be able to weather the storm, or if this is the beginning of the end of her controversial reign. Despite the mounting legal rulings against her and growing calls for her resignation, Henyard continues to press forward with her controversial decisions, seemingly undeterred by the mounting opposition. While many residents demand her resignation due to accusations of mismanagement, corruption, and a disregard for the law, she still enjoys the support of a dedicated group of loyal followers. These supporters argue that the backlash against Henyard is politically motivated, suggesting that the trustees and critics have personal grudges against her. They claim that the opposition is part of a smear campaign fueled by political enemies, seeking to undermine her leadership. However, even this unwavering loyalty has not been enough to quell the rising tide of dissent among the residents. The divide within Dalton has become stark, with one group believing Henyard's actions have caused serious harm to the village and undermined its governance, while the other views her as a victim of a biased political system. This clash of perspectives has turned village board meetings into chaotic spectacles, with each side lashing out at the other. The growing conflict between Henyard's supporters and her critics has further fractured Dalton, leaving the town in a state of political disarray. As the legal challenges mount and the community grows more divided, it is clear that Dalton is at a crossroads. The future of the village's leadership is in serious doubt, and the question of whether Henyard can survive this storm, or if her reign will come to a definitive end, remains to be seen. One thing is certain: Dalton will never be the same again. The political drama continues to unfold, and the stakes for the village's future have never been higher. Tiffany Henyard, the mayor of Dalton, is at the center of a political firestorm, and the village has become a battleground for a deeply divided community. Once a quiet, peaceful place, Dalton is transformed into a hotbed of frustration and outrage as residents demand accountability for Henyard's leadership amid a growing list of scandals. The most serious of these accusations is centered around Henyard's management of Dalton's finances, a subject that has sparked public fury. Allegations have surfaced claiming that she used taxpayer funds for luxury trips and expensive personal purchases, even as the village faces severe budget cuts and financial struggles. These accusations have only intensified public anger, especially as reports suggest that Henyard's spending habits have continued unchecked. Despite the village's mounting financial challenges, many residents have begun questioning Henyard's priorities and competence, particularly when the village's resources are stretched thin and essential community programs face cuts. Further compounding this anger, rumors are circulating that Henyard diverted funds from vital community programs to support personal projects, further deepening the distrust within the community. While concrete evidence is still being gathered, these rumors create a cloud of suspicion over her administration. In response, residents have demanded an independent audit to uncover the full extent of any potential wrongdoing, hoping for clarity and transparency about how their tax dollars are being spent. The situation has reached a boiling point, and the community is demanding accountability. At a recent meeting held in Thornton Township, tensions were palpable as trustees and citizens pressed Henyard for answers. The mayor's refusal to provide clear financial reports has only worsened the situation, and residents of Dalton are increasingly feeling the weight of these unanswered questions. The demands for transparency are loud and growing, but Henyard's response has been less than receptive, contributing to the growing animosity. But Henyard's troubles aren't confined to Dalton alone. Neighboring communities have begun to take notice of the unfolding scandal, and some residents fear that her controversial leadership could have broader implications for the region. There is growing concern that Henyard's actions could damage Dalton's reputation, impacting its future relationships with neighboring towns, local businesses, and even state agencies. This wider political fallout could change the dynamics of the entire region, leaving Dalton and its surrounding areas in a state of uncertainty. The pressure on Henyard is mounting, and it's unclear how long she can hold on to power. Legal challenges, public outrage, and allegations of financial mismanagement are all threatening to unravel her tenure. Despite this, Henyard remains resolute, refusing to step down in the face of mounting opposition and scandal. Her stubbornness has only fueled the anger and distrust within the community, and many residents are now questioning whether she is fit to lead at all. With the crisis deepening, Henyard's leadership appears increasingly untenable, but will the mounting pressure force her to step down? Or will she somehow weather this political storm? Dalton's future hangs in the balance, and the outcome of this political drama will likely shape the village's future for years to come. Henyard's troubles go beyond her personal leadership challenges. This situation has become a defining moment for the village, one that will ultimately reflect the community's expectations for its public officials. Will Henyard be able to salvage her position, or will the weight of public opinion, legal challenges, and political infighting finally bring an end to her controversial reign as tensions rise? More details are emerging that threaten to further damage Henyard's already precarious position. The situation has grown so dire that some in the village have started to consider alternative solutions, including the possibility of finding a replacement for Henyard if she cannot resolve the crisis. Residents are more engaged than ever, attending board meetings in large numbers, demanding answers, and questioning whether Henyard has the ability to lead Dalton through its current turmoil. One of the most dramatic moments came during a board meeting when Henyard was booed off the stage by a crowd that had grown increasingly disillusioned with her leadership. In response, Henyard doubled down on her combative approach, refusing to apologize or acknowledge the frustration of the public. Instead, she lashed out at the trustees, accusing them of corruption and suggesting that they were conspiring against her. She framed herself as a fighter, standing up against an unfair system, positioning herself as the underdog in this political struggle, while her combative rhetoric has resonated with some loyal supporters who view her as a champion of their interests. It has only served to further alienate the majority of residents who feel she is out of touch with their concerns. Henyard's refusal to acknowledge the growing anger among her constituents has only deepened the divide between her and the community. The more she positions herself as a victim of political forces, the more she risks losing any remaining support among the very people she is supposed to serve. Adding to Henyard's woes is a federal investigation. Recent reports suggest that the FBI has begun looking into allegations of bribery, financial mismanagement, and other serious misconduct within her administration. This federal investigation has intensified the uncertainty surrounding Henyard's future, and the stakes have never been higher. Residents are left wondering whether the investigation will confirm the growing list of allegations against her, or whether she will be able to clear her name and retain control of Dalton. The FBI's involvement has brought a new layer of complexity to Henyard's already fragile position. Federal authorities have the power to uncover even more damaging revelations, which would further erode her credibility and support among the residents. As the investigation progresses, the pressure on Henyard continues to build, and it remains to be seen whether she will be able to withstand the growing tide of opposition, or whether the combined weight of legal, financial, and political challenges will finally force her to step down. Meanwhile, Dalton's residents are becoming more divided than ever. Some continue to view Henyard as a staunch defender of their interests, believing that she is fighting an unfair political battle against forces that want to undermine her leadership. They argue that the criticism she faces is politically motivated, suggesting that the local trustees and critics have personal grudges against her. However, this group of loyal supporters is increasingly in the minority, and their unwavering loyalty to Henyard has not been enough to quell the rising tide of dissent within the broader community. On the other hand, many residents feel betrayed by Henyard's actions, accusing her of mismanagement, lack of transparency, and financial misconduct. For them, the growing list of accusations against her is more than enough reason to demand her resignation. This clash of perspectives has turned village board meetings into chaotic spectacles, with residents demanding answers while Henyard and her supporters accuse the political establishment of trying to undermine her authority. As tensions escalate, the town has become a political battlefield, and the outcome of this fight could have lasting implications not just for Dalton, but for the broader region as well. Henyard's troubles have also extended into neighboring Thornton Township, where she holds a leadership role. Her policies in the township have come under intense scrutiny, with many residents accusing her of favoring a small group of insiders rather than serving the broader community. This has raised even more questions about her leadership style and decision-making process. Some officials in Thornton are now considering launching their own investigations into Henyard's conduct, further complicating her already fragile position as the legal, political, and financial challenges continue to mount. It's unclear whether Henyard will be able to weather the storm or if her leadership will finally collapse under the pressure. The drama in Dalton is far from over, and the outcome of this saga will have profound implications for the village's political future. Will Henyard be able to retain control, or will the weight of public opinion, legal scrutiny, and political infighting finally bring an end to her controversial reign? The fate of Dalton's leadership is at a crossroads. The village is divided, tensions are rising, and the future of its governance is uncertain. The political turmoil in Dalton is far from over, and the coming months will likely determine whether Henyard's leadership can survive or whether it will collapse under the weight of mounting opposition. As the situation unfolds, residents of Dalton are left wondering, will Henyard be able to salvage her position, or is this the beginning of the end of her controversial tenure? The political storm surrounding Dalton's mayor, Tiffany Henyard, continues to escalate, leaving the community and the wider region in a state of uncertainty. As legal challenges, public backlash, and federal investigations mount, Henyard's grip on power has become more precarious than ever. The stakes have never been higher, and the village is at a crossroads, with residents and political observers alike eagerly awaiting the next chapter of this volatile saga. Despite growing opposition, Henyard has shown no signs of backing down. Her steadfastness, however, has only deepened the divide between her and the community. Many residents have expressed frustration with her leadership style, which have become the subject of mockery on social media. Posts regularly criticize her speeches, as she continues to dismiss public concerns. One resident remarked, "Tiffany always has to get the last word, and it's usually not worth hearing," while another added, "She criticizes others but doesn't like being called out herself." These comments reflect a broader shift in public opinion, with Henyard's popularity rapidly declining as more and more residents grow disillusioned with her administration. A central point of contention in Dalton has been Henyard's strained relationship with the village's board of trustees. Accusations have mounted that she bypasses the authority of the trustees and makes unilateral decisions without consulting them. This has led to a series of legal battles that have only deepened the political crisis in Dalton. At one particularly heated meeting, tensions boiled over when trustees confronted Henyard over her decision to hold a separate board meeting without the necessary quorum. When the meeting failed to proceed as planned, Henyard arrived late to the official meeting organized by the trustees, and the reception she received was far from welcoming. Both the board and the public expressed their frustration, and her attempts to assert control over the room were met with resistance. Her early departure after only a few minutes was widely seen as a sign of defeat. Clear evidence of how far her leadership has fallen from its once strong position, this chaotic scene highlighted the breakdown of trust between Henyard and the board, and it has come at a steep cost to Dalton. The constant political turmoil has distracted from critical issues like infrastructure, public safety, and community development. The administration has become consumed by legal battles, public protests, and political infighting, while essential village functions are left on the back burner. As the lawsuits pile up and investigations continue, Dalton's residents are left to wonder whether their community will ever recover from the damage caused by Henyard's leadership. Meanwhile, Henyard faces increasing legal and political pressure. Local authorities and federal agencies have launched investigations into her financial management, with allegations of misusing taxpayer funds, making questionable appointments, and defying court orders. These scandals have only intensified public outrage, but Henyard remains defiant, continuing to portray herself as a victim of political attacks. Her combative stance, however, has only alienated a growing portion of the community, with many feeling she has lost touch with their needs and concerns. The pressure on Henyard has reached a breaking point, and with each passing day, it becomes more apparent that Dalton is at a crossroads. The outcome of this political storm will ultimately determine whether Henyard can regain control and turn things around, or whether her continued defiance will force her to step down. The future of Dalton now hangs in the balance, and residents are left to wonder whether their community will be able to recover from the damage caused by her leadership, or if the political and legal turmoil will have lasting consequences for years to come as legal battles continue, public outrage escalates, and Henyard's grip on power weakens. It remains to be seen whether the mayor can weather the storm, or if Dalton will move on without her. The stakes have never been higher, and the political crisis surrounding Henyard has created an unpredictable and intense atmosphere. Residents and political observers alike are waiting to see how the situation will unfold. Will Henyard rise above the chaos and continue her controversial reign, or will the mounting tide of opposition and legal challenges finally bring her tenure to an end? Henyard's defiant stance continues to alienate large portions of the community, but her loyal supporters remain vocal in her defense. They argue that the opposition against her is politically motivated and that the controversy is part of a smear campaign orchestrated by personal enemies. According to her supporters, the trustees and critics are simply out to undermine her leadership. Despite their unwavering loyalty, however, Henyard's supporters have been unable to stem the rising tide of dissent. The village remains deeply divided, with some residents continuing to back Henyard and others demanding her resignation as the situation grows more tense. Henyard's controversial decisions and leadership style have tarnished Dalton's reputation. Many residents now fear that the ongoing political drama is making it increasingly difficult for the village to attract new businesses and investment. The constant turmoil has cast a shadow over Dalton's future, and many believe Henyard's leadership is obstructing progress. These residents are now calling for a change before further damage is done to the village's reputation and economic prospects, with lawsuits piling up, an FBI investigation looming, and her support base rapidly shrinking. Henyard's grip on power has never been more precarious. Even some of her closest allies are reportedly distancing themselves from her, acknowledging the growing challenges she faces. Despite these mounting obstacles, Henyard remains determined to hold on to her position, refusing to acknowledge the extent of the criticism directed at her. She continues to push forward with her controversial decisions, raising serious questions about her future and whether she will ever step down as the clock ticks down. Observers are speculating about Henyard's next move. Will she continue to defy court orders and risk further legal consequences? Or will she finally step down and allow Dalton to move forward? The stakes are higher than ever, and the situation only grows more intense with each passing day. As federal subpoenas are served and the possibility of criminal charges looms, the pressure on Henyard continues to mount, and the future of Dalton now hinges on whether she can weather the storm or whether the mounting legal, political, and public pressures will force her hand. The situation is increasingly unpredictable, and the drama continues to unfold in real time. Residents and political observers are watching closely, waiting to see whether Henyard's leadership will collapse under the weight of its own controversies or whether she will somehow manage to regain control. The fate of Dalton's future remains uncertain, and with each new development, it becomes clearer that the stakes have never been higher. As this political drama unfolds, the residents of Dalton are left wondering what the next chapter will bring. Will Henyard rise above the chaos and continue her controversial reign? Or will the mounting tide of opposition and legal troubles finally bring an end to her tenure? The political showdown is far from over, and the outcome remains anyone's guess. Stay tuned as this explosive political drama continues to unfold, with each new twist in turn raising more questions about the fate of Dalton and his leadership.